summary of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, The Easy Approach to Smart Banking, Saving, Spending and Investing by Ramit Sethi. Part 1 Overview. I Will Teach You to Be Rich is a modern money classic that provides simple wisdom on personal finance. Ramit Sethi gives us pragmatic and powerful ways to master our money, and then get back to the business of enjoying life. Imagine you're sitting in a cozy coffee shop, sipping your favorite latte, when a friend joins you. They notice the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich on your table and ask what it's about. You smile and begin to explain. You know, this book is all about taking control of your finances in a practical, no-nonsense way. The author, Ramit Sethi, starts off by emphasizing that getting rich isn't about complex investment strategies or extreme frugality. It's about making smart decisions with your money and automating your finances so you can focus on living your life. For instance, let's say you're like our friend Sarah. She's always complaining about never having enough money, but she spends $10 on lunch every workday. That's about $200 a month. Sethi would probably suggest that Sarah pack her lunch a few days a week and automatically transfer that saved money into a high-yield savings account. But it's not just about cutting costs. Sethi also talks about conscious spending. Remember when Tom bought that expensive guitar? Everyone thought he was crazy, but he had actually cut back on other areas he didn't care about, like his cable subscription and eating out, so he could afford what he really loved. The book also emphasizes the importance of starting early with investing, even if you don't have much to start with. Think about our other friend, Mike. He started putting just $50 a month into a low-cost index fund when he got his first job at 22. Now, 10 years later, he's got a solid investment portfolio growing steadily. Sethi's approach is all about setting up systems that work for you. It's like when you finally set up automatic bill payments and realized how much time and stress it saved you. He advocates for similar automation with savings and investments. The overview of the book really drives home the point that being rich isn't just about having a lot of money. It's about having the financial freedom to live the life you want, whether that's traveling the world, starting your own business, or just not stressing about your bills every month. As you finish explaining, your friend nods thoughtfully, clearly intrigued by these practical approaches to personal finance. Remember, these examples are fictional and meant to illustrate the general concepts, not to reproduce specific content from the book. If you're interested in the detailed strategies and advice, I'd recommend reading the book itself. Part 2 It's time to get off the blame train. Imagine you're at a family dinner, and your cousin Sarah is complaining about her financial situation. She's upset about her credit card debt, saying things like, "It's not fair. The banks are predatory with their high interest rates, and my job doesn't pay me enough. How am I supposed to get ahead?" You remember reading about this concept in Sethi's book and decide to share some insights. You know, Sarah, you begin, "I recently read something that made me think differently about situations like this." The author talked about how easy it is to blame others for our financial problems, the government, the economy, our employers, or even our parents for not teaching us about money. But here's the thing, while all these factors can influence our situation, focusing on blame doesn't actually improve anything. You go on to explain that the book encourages readers to take responsibility for their own financial decisions and actions, regardless of external circumstances. It's about shifting from a victim mentality to one of empowerment. For example, you continue, instead of blaming the credit card companies, we could focus on learning how to use credit responsibly and finding ways to pay off debt more efficiently. Or rather than just complaining about low wages, we could look into developing new skills to increase our earning potential. You share a personal anecdote. "I used to blame my parents for not teaching me about investing, and I felt like I was starting from behind. But then I realized that I'm an adult now, and it's up to me to educate myself. So I started reading books, attending free financial workshops at the library, and even set up a small investment account to learn by doing." The concept, you explain, isn't about ignoring real systemic issues or hardships. It's about focusing on what we can control and taking action to improve our situation, rather than remaining stuck in a cycle of blame and inaction. It's like that saying, you conclude, if you can't change the direction of the wind, adjust your sails. We might not be able to control everything in the economy or job market, but we can control our financial education, our spending habits, and our financial goals. As you finish explaining, you notice Sarah looking thoughtful. She's quiet for a moment, then says, maybe I could look into some ways to increase my income or reduce my expenses, instead of just feeling frustrated all the time. Part 3. You don't need to be a financial expert to live a rich life. Imagine you're at a coffee shop with your friend Alex, who's always been intimidated by personal finance. You notice her eyeing your copy of I Will Teach You to Be Rich with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. You say, catching her glance, this book talks about something that might surprise you. It says you don't need to be a financial wizard to live a rich life. Alex looks skeptical. But don't you need to understand all those complex investment strategies and economic theories? She asks. You shake your head, smiling. That's the beauty of it. The author argues that living a rich life is more about making smart, conscious decisions with your money than about knowing every detail of the stock market. You go on to explain that the book emphasizes focusing on the big wins rather than obsessing over every little financial decision. It's like when our friend Tom was agonizing over whether to buy generic or brand name cereal to save $1, while he was paying $200 a month for a gym membership he never used. You say. The book would suggest that canceling that unused gym membership would have a much bigger impact on his finances than the cereal choice. You share a personal anecdote. Remember when I was always stressed about money? I thought I needed to become an expert investor before I could start saving for retirement. But then I learned about index funds, a simple way to invest in a broad range of stocks without needing to pick individual companies. I set up automatic contributions from my paycheck, and now I'm building wealth without spending hours analyzing the market. The concept, you explain, is about focusing on the fundamentals, spending less than you earn, saving and investing the difference, and automating your finances so good habits happen without constant effort. It's like cooking, you say. You don't need to be a master chef to eat healthy, delicious meals. You just need to know some basics about nutrition and a few simple recipes. Similarly, you don't need to be a financial expert to live well. You just need to understand and apply some fundamental principles. You give another example. Our friend Sarah isn't a financial expert, but she's doing great. She negotiated a raise at work, set up automatic savings for her dream vacation, and she's paying off her student loans faster by making extra payments. She's living her version of a rich life without stressing over complex financial theories. Alex looks intrigued. So, it's more about taking action than knowing everything? Exactly, you nod. The book suggests that it's better to be mostly right and take action, rather than to be paralyzed trying to find the perfect solution. It's about making your money work for you and your goals, not about becoming a financial guru. As you finish explaining, you can see the relief on Alex's face. The idea that she doesn't need to become a financial expert to improve her financial life seems to have lifted a weight off her shoulders. This narrative captures the essence of the concept that you don't need to be a financial expert to live a rich life, as discussed in Sethi's book. It emphasizes the importance of understanding and applying fundamental principles, focusing on big wins, and taking action rather than getting overwhelmed by complex financial information. Part 4. Getting clued up on credit. Imagine you're at a housewarming party for your friend Emma. As you chat with other guests, the topic of credit comes up. Some people start sharing credit myths and misconceptions, and you decide to share what you've learned about credit from your recent reading. You begin, I've been learning a lot about credit recently, and it's not as complicated as it might seem at first. The key is understanding how it works and using it responsibly. You explain that credit is essentially borrowed money that you agree to pay back within a certain period, usually with interest. It's like when our friend Mark borrowed $50 from me last month for concert tickets. He promised to pay me back in 2 weeks. Credit works similarly, but on a larger scale and with more formal agreements. You go on to discuss the importance of a credit score. Think of it like a financial report card, you say. It gives lenders an idea of how reliable you are with borrowed money. The better your score, the more likely you are to get approved for loans with good terms. One of the guests, Tom, mentions he's afraid to use credit cards because he doesn't want to go into debt. You nod understandingly and share what you've learned. Credit cards can actually be useful tools if used responsibly. It's not about avoiding them altogether, but about using them wisely. You give an example. Our friend Sarah uses her credit card for most purchases but pays off the full balance each month. She's building a good credit history without paying any interest. Plus, she's earning rewards points she uses for travel. The conversation turns to credit reports, and you explain that these are detailed records of a person's credit history. It's like a financial biography, you say. It shows your past and current debts, payment history, and other financial information. It's a good idea to check your credit report regularly to ensure all the information is accurate. You share a personal anecdote. Last year, I checked my credit report and found an error. A loan I never took out was listed. I disputed it, and it was removed. My credit score improved after that. It taught me the importance of staying on top of my credit information. As the discussion continues, you emphasize the importance of paying bills on time, keeping credit card balances low, and not applying for too much new credit at once. These are some of the key factors that affect your credit score, you explain. You conclude by saying, understanding credit isn't about becoming a financial expert. It's about knowing the basics and making informed decisions. It's a tool that, when used responsibly, can help you achieve your financial goals. As you finish, you notice that many of the guests seem more at ease with the topic of credit. They're asking questions and sharing their own experiences, and there's a sense that credit is no longer this mysterious, intimidating concept. Part 5: Getting the best bang for your buck. Imagine you're at a local coffee shop with your friend Lisa. She's just moved to town and is complaining about her current bank's high fees and poor customer service. You remember reading about choosing the right bank in Sethi's book and decide to share some insights. You know, Lisa, you begin, I recently read something interesting about choosing the right bank. It's not just about going with the most convenient option or the one your parents use. It's about finding a bank that aligns with your financial needs and goals. You explain that the book emphasizes the importance of shopping around for banks, much like you would for any other service. It's like when we were looking for a new gym membership, remember? We didn't just sign up at the first place we saw. We compared features, prices, and read reviews. Lisa nods, intrigued, and you continue. The book suggests looking at several key factors when choosing a bank. For instance, fee structures are crucial. Some banks charge monthly maintenance fees, ATM fees, or have high minimum balance requirements. Others offer accounts with no or low fees. You share a personal anecdote. I used to have an account with a big national bank. I was paying $12 a month in maintenance fees and $3 every time I used an out-of-network ATM. That's over $150 a year just in fees. I switched to an online bank that doesn't charge monthly fees and reimburses ATM fees. It saved me a lot of money. You go on to discuss interest rates. Especially for savings accounts, the interest rate can make a big difference over time. Online banks often offer higher rates than traditional brick-and-mortar banks because they have lower overhead costs. Lisa looks surprised. I didn't know there could be such a big difference between banks, she says. You nod. Exactly. The book also talks about the importance of customer service and tech features. For example, our friend Mike loves his bank because their mobile app is really user-friendly. He can deposit checks, transfer money, and pay bills all from his phone. You explain that the ideal bank might be different for everyone, depending on their needs. For instance, if you travel a lot, you might want a bank with a large ATM network or no foreign transaction fees. If you're trying to save more, you might prioritize a bank with a high-yield savings account and automatic savings features. The key, you conclude, is to be proactive. Don't just stick with a bank because it's convenient. Take some time to research and compare options. You might be surprised at how much you can save and how much easier banking can be with the right institution. Lisa looks thoughtful. You know, I never really considered shopping around for a bank before. I think I'll look into some other options this weekend. You smile, glad to have shared this knowledge. That's great. Remember, it's your money. You deserve a bank that works for you, not against you. This narrative encapsulates the main ideas about choosing the right bank from Sethi's book. It emphasizes the importance of comparing options, considering factors like fees, interest rates, and features, and choosing a bank that aligns with individual financial needs and goals. Part 6: Getting Investment Savvy. Imagine you're at a backyard barbecue with a group of friends. The conversation turns to money, and your friend Jake mentions he's been keeping all his savings in a low-interest savings account because he's intimidated by investing. You remember the insights from Sethi's book and decide to share what you've learned. You know, Jake, you begin, I used to feel the same way about investing. It seemed so complex and risky. But I recently read something that changed my perspective. It turns out, getting investment savvy doesn't mean you need to become a Wall Street expert. You explain that the book emphasizes starting with the basics and focusing on long-term, sustainable investing strategies rather than trying to beat the market. Think of it like gardening, you say. You don't need to be a botanist to grow tomatoes. You just need to understand some basic principles, plant the seeds, and be patient. Investing is similar. You go on to discuss the importance of understanding different types of investment vehicles. There are stocks, bonds, mutual funds, index funds, and more. Each has its own characteristics and potential risks and rewards. Your friend Sarah chimes in, but isn't picking individual stocks the way to go? I heard about this guy who made a fortune on tech stocks. You shake your head, remembering what you learned. Actually, for most people, the book suggests that trying to pick individual winning stocks is more like gambling than investing. Instead, it recommends considering index funds, which allow you to invest in a broad range of stocks or bonds all at once. You share a personal anecdote. I started investing in a low-cost index fund that tracks the entire stock market. It's not exciting, I'm not going to get rich overnight, but over time, it's grown steadily. And the best part is, I don't have to spend hours researching individual companies. The conversation turns to the topic of risk, and you explain the concept of asset allocation. It's like having a balanced diet, you say. Just as you wouldn't eat only one type of food, you typically don't want to put all your money in one type of investment. The book talks about spreading your investments across different asset classes based on your goals and risk tolerance. You give an example. Our friend Emma is in her 20s and saving for retirement. She has a higher percentage of her investments in stocks because she has time to weather market ups and downs. On the other hand, our neighbor Mr. Johnson, who's nearing retirement, has more of his money in bonds because he needs more stability. As the discussion continues, you emphasize the importance of starting early and investing regularly. The book really drives home the power of compound interest, you say. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger over time. You conclude by saying, the key takeaway is that you don't need to be a financial genius to invest wisely. It's about understanding some basic principles, setting up a plan that aligns with your goals, and then largely leaving it alone to grow over time. As you finish, you notice that Jake and some of the others look more at ease with the idea of investing. They're asking questions and sharing their own thoughts, and there's a sense that investing is no longer this mysterious, intimidating concept. Part 7: Getting Conscious About Spending. Imagine you're having dinner with a group of friends at a local restaurant. Your friend Rachel sighs as she looks at the menu, saying, I wish I could order what I really want, but I'm trying to save money. I guess I'll just have a salad. You remember reading about conscious spending in Sethi's book and decide to share some insights. You know, Rachel, you begin, I've been learning about this idea of conscious spending. It's not about depriving yourself of everything you enjoy. It's about being intentional with your money and aligning your spending with your values and goals. You explain that the book emphasizes the importance of understanding where your money is going and making deliberate choices about your spending, rather than following a strict budget that feels restrictive. Think of it like planning a trip, you say. You don't just randomly pack things into your suitcase. You think about what you'll need and what's important to you. Conscious spending is similar. It's about being thoughtful with your money. Your friend Mark chimes in, but isn't the point of saving to cut back on everything? You shake your head, recalling what you learned. Actually, the idea is to cut back ruthlessly on things you don't care about so you can spend generously on the things you love. It's not about living a life of deprivation, but about making your money work for you. You share a personal anecdote. I used to buy a coffee every morning because that's what everyone at work did. But I realized I didn't even enjoy it that much. I was spending over $100 a month out of habit. Now, I make coffee at home and put that money towards weekend trips, which I really value. The conversation turns to the topic of guilt-free spending, and you explain the concept of setting up money buckets or categories. It's like having different jars for different purposes, you say. You might have one for fixed costs like rent and utilities, one for investments, one for savings goals, and one for guilt-free spending on things you enjoy. You give an example. Our friend Tom loves video games. Instead of feeling guilty every time he buys a game, he set up a fun money account. He puts a certain amount in there each month, and when a new game comes out, he can buy it without stress because he planned for it. As the discussion continues, you emphasize the importance of regularly reviewing and adjusting your spending. The book really drives home the point that your spending should reflect your current values and goals, which can change over time, you say. It's about being flexible and adjusting as your life changes. You conclude by saying, the key takeaway is that conscious spending isn't about restriction, it's about intention. It's about making sure your money is going towards things that truly matter to you, rather than just slipping away on things you don't really care about. As you finish, you notice that Rachel and some of the others look more relaxed about the idea of managing their money. They're sharing their own thoughts about what they value and how they might align their spending with those values. Rachel smiles and says, "You know what? I think I will order that pasta I've been eyeing. I realize now that enjoying a nice meal with friends is something I truly value, and I can make adjustments elsewhere in my spending to accommodate it." To get started, we need to divide our take-home income into fixed costs, investments, savings, and spending. Fixed costs are the immovable costs that constitute monthly necessities. These are things like mortgage or rent, car payments, basic groceries, and so on. Once we add them together, we also need to add a 15% buffer. This is there to allow for unexpected costs. Ideally, this total amount should be 50 to 60% of your monthly income, after tax. Investments should make up the next 10%. Then it's savings. This is where we plan for things like holidays, buying a house, college funds, and so forth. Savings should account for 5 to 10% of our income. All of these payments should come off of our account as soon as we get paid. This reduces the temptation to spend. And the good news is that whatever is left is ours for the spending. In an ideal situation, this should be 15 to 25% of our total income. Part 8: Getting to grips with a set-it-and-forget-it investment strategy. Imagine you're at a weekend barbecue with friends, and the topic of investing comes up. Your friend Alex mentions he's been trying to day trade stocks but finds it stressful and time-consuming. You remember reading about the set-it-and-forget-it strategy in Sethi's book and decide to share what you've learned. "You know, Alex," you begin, "I recently read about an investment approach that might interest you. It's called the set-it-and-forget-it strategy, and it's designed for people who want to invest for the long term without constantly worrying about the market." You explain that this strategy is based on the idea that for most people, trying to beat the market consistently is not only difficult but often counterproductive. Instead, the focus is on creating a solid, diversified portfolio and then largely leaving it alone to grow over time. Think of it like planting a tree, you say. You don't dig it up every day to check on its roots. You plant it in good soil, water it regularly, and let nature do its work. Investing can be similar. Your friend Sarah looks skeptical. "But don't you need to constantly buy and sell to make money in the stock market?" she asks. You shake your head, recalling what you learned. Actually, the book argues that for most people, frequent trading often leads to worse outcomes. The set-it-and-forget-it approach is about taking advantage of the long-term growth of the market as a whole, rather than trying to pick individual winners. You share a personal anecdote. I used to spend hours every week researching stocks and trying to time the market. It was exhausting, and I often made emotional decisions based on short-term market movements. Now, I've set up automatic investments into a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds. It's less stressful, takes less time, and so far, my returns have been steady. The conversation turns to the practical aspects of implementing this strategy. You explain the concept of asset allocation and the importance of diversification. It's like having a balanced diet, you say. Just as you wouldn't eat only one type of food, you don't put all your money in one type of investment. The strategy often involves creating a mix of stocks and bonds that aligns with your age, goals, and risk tolerance. You give an example. Our friend Emma, who's in her 30s and saving for retirement, has set up her portfolio with 80% in stock index funds and 20% in bond index funds. She has automatic contributions going in every month, and once a year, she spends about an hour rebalancing to maintain those percentages. As the discussion continues, you emphasize the importance of low-cost index funds in this strategy. The book really drives home the point that keeping costs low is crucial for long-term success, you say. Index funds that track broad market indices often have very low fees compared to actively managed funds. You conclude by saying, the key takeaway is that successful investing doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. It's about setting up a solid plan based on your goals, automating your contributions, and then largely leaving it alone to grow over time. Of course, you still need to review and rebalance periodically, but we're talking about hours per year, not per week. As you finish, you notice that Alex and some of the others look intrigued by this approach. They're asking questions about how to get started and sharing their own experiences with investing. Alex nods thoughtfully. You know, that sounds a lot less stressful than what I've been doing. I think I might look into setting up something like that for myself. Experts don't always know best, and when it comes to investing, keep it simple but get started. There are so many experts out there who provide advice on trading stock, but they don't always get it right. Take for example, the smartest investment book you ever read. In this book, Daniel Solon explains that a whopping 47 out of 50 investment firms advised clients to purchase shares in companies right up until they went bust. This proves just how volatile and unknown investing can be. It's up to us to be smart about investing, without falling prey to thinking we can predict what's going to happen. Sethi gives us the picture of an investment pyramid. At the base of the pyramid are stocks, bonds, and cash. There are index and mutual funds in the middle, and at the top, there are life cycle funds. We need to look at investments with a set-it-and-forget-it strategy. We should be looking for age-based or target-based funds where we can invest and then not have to worry about making adjustments. We can literally sit back and wait for our money to grow. These types of funds are relatively secure and are much safer than falling into the trap of investor hyperbole. In conclusion, imagine you're having a coffee with your friend Jamie, who's been following your journey as you've been implementing the principles from the book. Jamie is curious about your overall takeaways and how it's changed your approach to personal finance. You take a sip of your coffee and smile. You know, Jamie, this whole experience has really transformed how I think about money. The conclusion of the book really drove home some key points that I think are worth sharing. You explain that the book emphasizes that being rich isn't just about having a certain amount of money in the bank. It's about creating a life where your finances support your personal definition of a rich life. It's like when we were kids and thought being rich meant having a mansion and a sports car, you say. But now, I realize that for me, being rich means having the freedom to travel, the security to pursue my passions, and the ability to help my family when they need it. Jamie nods, intrigued. That sounds great, but isn't it hard to maintain all these new habits? You shake your head, remembering what you learned. Actually, one of the key points is that once you set up your system, a lot of it runs on autopilot. It's not about perfectly pinching every penny or constantly obsessing over your investments. You share a personal anecdote. Remember how I used to stress about every purchase and feel guilty about buying anything nice for myself? Now, I have my automatic savings and investments set up, and I have a guilt-free spending account. When I want to buy something, I know it's okay because I've already taken care of my important financial goals. The conversation turns to the long-term perspective emphasized in the conclusion. You explain that the book encourages readers to think beyond just the next few months or years. It's like planting a garden, you say. You don't expect to see results overnight, but with consistent care and patience, you end up with something beautiful and sustaining. The book really emphasizes that building wealth is a long-term game. You give an example. Our friend Lisa started investing just $100 a month 5 years ago. It didn't seem like much at first, but now she's amazed at how her nest egg has grown. She's on track to have a comfortable retirement, and she barely had to think about it after setting up her automatic investments. As the discussion continues, you emphasize the importance of taking action. The book really drives home the point that knowledge without action is useless, you say. It's not about becoming a financial expert, it's about taking steps, even small ones, to improve your financial life. You conclude by saying, the key takeaway for me is that anyone can take control of their finances and work towards a richer life. It's not about following a one-size-fits-all plan, but about understanding these principles and applying them in a way that works for your unique situation and goals. As you finish, you notice that Jamie looks inspired. You know, Jamie says, I've been putting off dealing with my finances because it seemed so overwhelming. But the way you explain it, it sounds doable. I think I might start by setting up that automatic savings you mentioned. You smile, glad to have shared these insights. That's great, Jamie. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about getting started and making progress over time. Every step you take is bringing you closer to your own version of a rich life. Sethi gives us a straightforward and practical approach to managing our money. He removes the mystery around saving and investing so that we don't have to rely on the financial experts, nor fear that we'll need to forego the things we love to save for retirement and rainy days. Sethi's take-home advice is this: we spend extravagantly on the things we love and cut costs mercilessly on the things we don't. This is so valuable because everyone defines being rich differently, and it's not all about money. Money is just the tool we use to acquire the material possessions and experiences we want. According to our author, that's the difference between being cheap and being frugal. Being cheap is trying to cut spending on everything, and being frugal is cutting costs on the things we don't care about so that we can splurge on the things we do. So, what does a rich and prosperous life mean to you? Thank you for listening. I hope this content is useful to you. If you like this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel to support our team.